Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to the INBIOSIS Online Forum Series 3 2025. I am Dr. Hamizah Shahirah, your moderator for today's online forum series. I feel so grateful today that all of us are granted with good health, time, and have the opportunity to attend this online forum series. For your information, this is the third online forum that held this year by INBIOSIS, in addition to other webinar online and offline seminar series. We have been collaborating with other organizations such as the Malaysian Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology and Malaysian Natural Products Society in organizing online forum series since 2023, and hopefully this collaboration will continue in the future. We are honored today to host three distinguished panelists. Our first panelist, Professor Dr. Joanna Neill from the University of Manchester, United Kingdom, and Dr. Raihan Hassan from Ministry of Health, Malaysia. Our last speaker, Professor Dr. Firdaus Mukhtar from Hospital Sultan Abdul Aziz Shah, Universiti Putra, Malaysia. All of our panelists here will share with us their experience and knowledge in explaining and analyzing today's topic entitled Mental Health from Psychological Roots to Natural and Medical Interventions. Before that, if you have any questions to ask any of the speaker, kindly write your question in the text box, in the chat box. And after all speakers have presented, I will read your question. A little bit introduction about today's topic. Mental health is complex, and so must be our response to it. So that's why today's forum is essential. We are here to explore mental health through a multidisciplinary lens, from psychology perspective, where we examine the roots of behavior, trauma, and cognition, and to the medicine and health, where physical and mental well-being are deeply connected, and into psychopharmacology, where we understand how medications or therapies can restore the chemical balance and support the recovery. So each of these fields plays a vital role. Alone, they offer insights, but together, they offer a more complete picture of how we can support mental awareness in meaningful and lasting ways. So today's speakers will guide us through the interplay of thoughts, biology, behavior, lifestyle, and medical treatments, and help us to see how integrated care leads to better outcomes. Without further ado, I would like to open the forum with our first panelist, Professor Dr. Jo Neill. Before we begin, allow me to share a few highlights from Professor Jo Neill's biography. Professor Jo Neill is a professor of psychopharmacology at the University of Manchester, UK. She is a chair of the Medical Psychedelics Working Group and chair of trustees at Drug Science, a trustee for Heroic Hearts UK and Anaya Science, and a scientific advisor for the Center for Evidence-Based Drug Policy. She is a co-founder of BNeuro, a university-based contract research organization developing new treatments for mental illness through animal models, and past president of the British Association for Psychopharmacology. She served on the Research Excellence Framework panel for Units of Assessment 3 in 2014. Professor Jo is working with policy at Manchester and Drug Science to educate the public about the urgent need for drug law reform and suspension of Schedule 1 restriction to enable research into the medicinal properties of currently illegal drugs. She is a co-host of the Drug Science podcast alongside with Professor David Nutt and Dr. Hannah Turger. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Joanna to share with us her opinion on our topic today. Please welcome Dr. Prof. Jo.
Thank you very much for this esteemed invitation. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I'm absolutely delighted to be here for what is your afternoon and it is my morning. Yes, and thank you for such a lovely introduction. So I've been working on psychedelic medicine for some some time now, probably for about 6 years. And it is a real pleasure to be sharing some of the recent research in that particular field with you. Now, interestingly, in the UK and the United States, we have a complete mental health crisis. In the UK, this is the single largest cause of disability, and it costs our economy up to 300 billion a year, 300 billion in 2022. We have a lot of people who cannot work, and are really struggling with trauma and illnesses such as post-traumatic stress disorder, addiction, anxiety, severe depression is reasonably common. Now, interestingly, the Mental State of the World report, this has been, they have, the Sapien Labs have analysed the mental health of about 82 internet-enabled countries since the COVID-19 pandemic. And in the last 2 years, the UK has come bottom. So we have come last of 82 countries that have been surveyed in this, along with Ukraine. But the very good news for you is that Malaysia has come fifth as the happiest country, one of the happiest countries in the world. And your score has increased to 85%, which is a high score since 2022. So I think you are getting things right, and perhaps in the UK, we are not getting things right. TRD here is treatment-resistant depression. Over 100 million people are affected by this. This is severe depression that has not responded to at least 5 different types of currently available antidepressants. And suicide is very common in this population, as it is in people with post-traumatic stress disorder. And the commonly prescribed antidepressants, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or selective noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors, do work for people with mild to moderate depression, but for severe depression and trauma and severe anxiety disorder, they do not work. The suicide rates are very high in the military population. Hamizah mentioned I work with Heroic Hearts Project UK. They are enabling veterans to seek an alternative medication, which is a psychedelic approach. So as Hamizah said, I worked in drug discovery for psychiatry for all those years, for most of my career, about 35 years. And I think in psychiatry, we have hit a brick wall without the discovery or the enabling patients to access significantly improved medication. And kind of this started about 15 years ago, and it's still going on. So some pharma companies like Boehringer here came back into it, but actually then they have pulled out again. In the last 3 years, the European Medical Agency has licensed 68 new products for cancer treatments and only 1 for psychiatry. So this gives you an idea of how bad the situation is. So about 5-6 years ago, I gave up my lab and I completely changed my career to work on psychedelic medicine because it works for people where nothing else will. One of the key things about psychedelic medicine is that many of them come from plants. So you can see psilocybin there, which is the active ingredient of so-called magic mushrooms. The peyote cactus, mescaline is the active ingredient. Ayahuasca, the active ingredient is dimethyltryptamine. And I put those structures up for the chemists among you because you can see how similar they are to serotonin in structure. And this is how they work, by activating serotonin 2A receptors in the cortex. And that induces a cascade of events that enables people to heal from their trauma. It is absolutely extraordinary. One point about this is they come from plants, but we can, of course, synthesize these molecules in the laboratory. They're fairly simple molecules. But indigenous people in South America, in Africa, maybe in Malaysia, have been using these plants for healing and for spiritual purposes for thousands of years. So that's a very important aspect of all this, that we have an awful lot of knowledge from indigenous wisdom that now we're kind of learning about in the West. So in a sense, the tables are turning, I think, and we are learning about, alternative approaches to treating our Western ailments. So the four things that I tell people, and it's important to understand that psychedelics are delivered with psychotherapy. It's very important that people are enabled to understand what the psychedelics are doing, and how they can move forwards, because it is an altered state of consciousness. It is can be a very intense experience, can be a real life-changing experience. But compared to our current approaches to mental health, which is to prescribe a medicine that people must take every day to manage their symptoms. So we don't heal people in psychiatry generally. We manage their symptoms by prescribing medication and through different forms of therapy and alternative approaches. So the paradigm in psychedelic therapy is very different. We administer in a very safe setting. In the West, it's in a clinical environment usually, or it can be in a retreat setting. 1 to 3 high doses, probably spaced about 3 weeks apart, because of the neuroplasticity, and I see you'll be learning a lot about neuroplasticity in one of the next talks. And kind of an essential aspect of how psychedelics induce their long-term healing effects, and people may never need to access them again. So psychedelics have had quite a bad press over the years, and people do have questions, so I'm going to try and answer those. The history of psychedelic medicine in the West, and this kind of all started in the States. So Albert Hofmann synthesized LSD, as we're probably all familiar with that psychedelic. So that is a synthetic molecule. And he was working for Sandoz, a large pharmaceutical company. Famously, he took it himself. They didn't know what to do with it, but they knew it would be very important for people. And they distributed it to a number of psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health professionals, and they did clinical trials with LSD. So there were a number of very significant findings in people with severe mental health. And you can see there, they did a lot of work on addiction. And Humphrey Osmond was a British psychiatrist working in the States. He treated over 2,000 people who had alcohol use disorder, and he got a 40% abstinence rate. Alcoholics Anonymous is one of the standard sort of approaches, certainly in the West, and we get a 7% abstinence rate. So this is absolutely extraordinary, and it kind of enables people to completely reframe understand why they are drinking to such excess. And then he synthesized psilocin, which is the active component, the metabolite of psilocybin, not until 1958. So in the early days, the research was done with LSD, but ecstasy is another psychedelic, has a slightly different mechanism of action. That was synthesized in 1916 by a chap working for Merck. Again, they knew it was important, but they didn't know what to do with it. And actually, it did get shelved until the 60s, and then it was used in couples counseling. So the history of the psychedelic research is very interesting, and you can see here that there were a number of research papers published before 1971. And President Nixon in the States was fighting a war in Vietnam. Psychedelics enabled people to connect to nature, to connect to each other. And the last thing, once you've had a psychedelic experience, the last thing anybody wants to do is to go and fight a war. So he shut it all down, and he made them Class A drugs and Schedule 1. So the scheduling, as you heard from my bio, disables research, and the Class A, this class system is to guide the courts on sentencing people for possession and supply, and they are the harshest penalties. And Schedule 1 drugs are allegedly the most harmful drugs, and actually we know that psychedelics are not harmful physiologically. It's a very intense and can be a very difficult psychological experience for people. So people need to be very, very safe when they're undergoing this. So in 1986, MAPS was formed, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies by Rick Doblin, and that reinvigorated research into psychedelic medicine. And now we are in the psychedelic renaissance, where there are a huge number of clinical trials being performed all across the world. I don't know how the research profile is in Malaysia. I'd be really interested to know, but there are at least 400 clinical trials currently registered for psychedelic medicine for a range of disorders, but for these hard to treat disorders. So for addictions, and for addictions for all substances, for severe depression, for post-traumatic stress disorder, for other disorders such as obsessive compulsive disorder, anorexia nervosa, all these illnesses that are so difficult to treat. This is a horrendous slide. I appreciate you can't see it. I can't really see it either properly, but it's just to show you the different companies that are now working in this space. So this really has reinvigorated research in psychiatry. So people ask me, are they safe? They have had since the 1970s when they were banned. Class A drug, people assume they're very dangerous. They can induce for sure a very difficult psychological experience. People need to be kept very safe. They need to have a lot of support. However, people come out well. One of the reasons I stopped my my career in drug discovery, and I was an animal researcher at the early stage. I met a combat veteran who had significant trauma when after he had been fighting in Afghanistan. He came back and developed post-traumatic stress disorder, stopped being able to sleep, was thinking of committing suicide, and he didn't take traditional Western medicines. He went to Holland and he took a couple of high doses of psilocybin in a hotel room, which isn't how you're supposed to do it, but he came out well. And that was 2019. He's now doing a medical degree, and I see him occasionally, and he is still well. And he has not needed to access these medicines again. So just there are, of course, risks. There can be physiological effects. In the heart is one of the main effects, I would say, and that's because of off-target effects on 5-HT2B receptors, which are located on the heart valves. And actually, any medicines that are 5-HT2B agonists have been withdrawn from the market because of valvulopathy in the heart. However, with taking 3 high doses, people get an increase in blood pressure and heart rate, but none of that in all the clinical trials, none of that has been a significant adverse effect. People are taking low doses of these in the long term, maybe for 3 months at a time. We call that microdosing. I think we need more research to see about potential toxicity, heart toxicity there, but that's really one of the I guess it's so far not proving to be an issue, but I think we need to be aware of it. There are issues with clinical trials with psychedelic medicine. It's, of course, very hard to blind patients. You know if you've got an altered state of consciousness. You certainly know if you've taken a psychedelic. However, if we think about any trial for psychiatric disorder, they're also extremely hard to blind, because you know if you've got an antipsychotic on board or an antidepressant. So, and I think this has been a bit overconflated. It is hard to placebo control, of course. The trials tend to be a lot smaller. They tend to be in a white Caucasian population so far. I think because most trials have been done in the US and the UK, Europe, but we absolutely need to rectify that. The psychotherapy component is very different compared to a normal clinical trial. And people who come on these trials have very severe mental health disorders, potentially have considered suicide. Some will have tried. So there's a huge expectancy effect. I think it's important to be just aware of those. People always say to me, oh, but they're class A, they must be hugely addictive. They're anti-addictive, as I told you about the alcohol studies. And actually, this is a meta-analysis of the randomized control, placebo-controlled trials that were conducted pre-1971. And you can see that all the results came out in each trial in favor of LSD compared to the placebo to enable people to stop drinking alcohol. And I like the quote at the bottom there. It's common for people to have significant insights into their problems. And this is really what we see with psychedelic medicine, to feel that they've been given a new chance in life. And they have a very strong resolution to discontinue their drinking, which I'm not sure we can really give people in other situations. There have been trials post-1971. As I said, we're in the psychedelic renaissance. Small open label trials, that's kind of one of the issues, I think, with some of the current trials. But in both psilocybin on my screen on the left-hand side and ecstasy, MDMA, both significantly reduced drinking, much more so than either the placebo or the treatment as usual. So this one here, this is the ecstasy. I don't know if you can see my mouse, actually. It's difficult for an academic without a pointer. And this is the amount of abstinence, and this is the treatment as usual. So you can see how huge the effect of MDMA is there, and how the significant, a very large reduction in heavy drinking. So that's we have very high rates of addiction in the West. This is a hard slide, I think, for you to read, but it's just to show you that the quality of some of the clinical trials. This one for psilocybin at one dose only and given only once, 25 milligrams, significantly reduced depression in people with treatment-resistant depression, and they got a 37% response rate, and that is much bigger than in all the other trials. The STAR-D trial is the best trial of this type. And there have been a lot of trials on severe depression because we've such a problem with it. And this is a meta-analysis. I just wanted to kind of point out that to do a meta-analysis, there have to be very well conducted, carefully controlled trials. So that is significant. And David Nutt, who you may have heard of, runs the Imperial Centre in London for psychedelic research. And he very bravely did a trial comparing escitalopram, which I'm told is the best antidepressant there is, of the SSRIs. I was talking to Andrea Cipriani one night over dinner, who is a world expert on depression and current medicines. I said, well, if I get severe depression, which one should I use? And he said escitalopram. He said that is the best one. So they compared escitalopram to psilocybin, and this is to a one high dose of psilocybin. Again, actually, they gave psilocybin 3 times, as I said before, in over a period of time, over weeks. And they were psilocybin, it reduced the level of depression slightly greater. You can see the top left panel there, greater than escitalopram, not to a significant effect though. However, when we measured, or they measured, quality of life and all the other indicators of well-being and having a good mental health, psilocybin outperformed escitalopram. So this escitalopram, of course, was given every day, whereas the psilocybin was only given 3 times. I think that's significant. As I mentioned before, post-traumatic stress disorder is a very big problem in people like veterans, people who've had trauma in childhood, sexual abuse, people who've had psychological abuse, people who've had significant accidents in their lives. It is very common to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, hypervigilance, unable to sleep. And in the large MAPS trials for PTSD, and this was in the military in the States, they got a very significant, and this was 3 doses of ecstasy, again, very like in the last trial we saw with psilocybin, a very significant reduction in PTS scores. And what I think is most important there, the underlined points, is that people no longer met the criteria for having PTSD. Now, I don't want to go over time, but what I think is quite interesting, a sort of real world evidence for this, is that people who were in that horrific attack in Israel in the festival that kind of started this ghastly war, the people who were on ecstasy, so they were taking it for a recreational purpose, or for as a festival. It's quite common for people to use ecstasy. The people who were on high dose ecstasy, it seems that their trauma was significantly less. There is a big research project going on now, and that's very nice, I think, as a real world evidence that this can work for people. Something I'm particularly interested in is the existential anxiety and crisis that people, up to 30% of people with a cancer diagnosis, and we know how common, we all know people who have, my mother actually died of pancreatic cancer, people who have died of cancer, people who are living with cancer, or dealing with having a cancer diagnosis, or any life-threatening diagnosis. This is hard to see, so I apologize for this slide, really. But what they find is, if people are able to access a high dose of a psychedelic, and I've actually done quite a lot of talks on this recently, and I've met quite a few cancer patients who have done that. The issue we have, of course, is that this is not legal for a medicine in the UK yet, but it significantly reduces their anxiety and their depression. And this is one of the largest trials that has been done post 1971. What I've found in talking to people is that when you have this, actually a woman with stage 4 breast cancer, the cancer is always there, and you're always dealing with this and fearful of your kind of, I suppose, accelerated death potentially if you don't go into remission. Even when people go into remission, though, there is a very big fear of course, of the cancer coming back. And it's able to shift your perspective. And she says, I don't now think of how long I've got to live. It's how well I am living and how well every day I live every day, which I think is something we all really want to feel more of. I've probably got not just another couple of minutes. I hope that's okay. But what I'm particularly excited for, the potential of psychedelic medicine, because of their effects on neuroplasticity, for neurodegenerative disorders. And this is, I have to show you this because this is so exciting. This is a recent trial, and open label, very small, 12 people, but these are people with Parkinson's disease, which we know is a very difficult to live with neurodegenerative condition, for movement, but also for mood, and many other cognitive processing, other aspects of your life. So these people were not young, the mean age of 63. It had been 4.5 years since, so they've been living with Parkinson's for 4.5 years as a mean. They gave them a moderate dose, 10 milligrams, and then 2 weeks later, followed by 25 milligrams with the therapy sessions. They didn't find any adverse events, and these are people who will be on significant medication. They won't have been able to take them off that. They found, and they were looking for an increase in mood, a little bit like in the cancer patients. They did see the increase in mood, but they also measured cognitive function and motor function, and psilocybin improved both of those. And they assessed that up to 1 month post dosing. So it'll be very interesting to see their follow-up, and I'm sure they will do some qualitative analysis on those patients. So I did an event last week, psychedelics for traumatic brain injury in elite athletes. And we had an ice hockey player, Daniel Carcillo. I don't know if there are any ice hockey enthusiasts in the audience, but he had multiple concussions and had a diagnosis of dementia at the age of 31, a lot of neurological tests. He's a rich man, so he was able to have an awful lot of treatments. And he has access to quite a number of psychedelic therapy sessions, and he has no longer the same diagnosis. And I mean, I really don't know a lot of the details, but I think that's absolutely extraordinary. We had a former international rugby player, and he had done iboga, which you saw on the picture slide. He went to Colombia to do iboga with the shamans, and he had had 12 successive traumatic brain injuries, concussions. He was really, really unwell, and he was suicidal, of course, he couldn't play rugby anymore. He had a leg injury that didn't heal. And he was there, and he looked absolutely fantastic, so well now. So that's a very interesting aspect of this. As I said, they are 5-HT2A receptor agonists. These are located in layer 5 of the cortex and all over the cortex. And really, that's where we do a lot of our complex thinking, our decision making. The default mode network, you maybe have heard of that. It tends to switch that off, which is kind of the top-down control in the brain. And it enables reorganization of the brain when we have significant very hard to treat disorders like PTSD or severe depression or severe anxiety disorders. The brain tends to get into a malformed circuitry loop, overexpression in amygdala and so on. And actually psychedelics shift that, and it's through the activation of these 2A receptors starting this. They release glutamate, an increase in excitation, and an increase in neuroplasticity by a couple of different mechanisms, by interaction with the TRKB receptor. Really interesting. And that process enables the brain to reorganize, and you get new synaptic connections. For us, it's very difficult to research them because they're Schedule 1 drugs. I don't know how it is in Malaysia. I would say certainly for neurological disorders, we could do with some more research. I think there's always going to be an important need for more research. There are countries that have legalized this as a medicine. Australia, the Czech Republic most recently, Canada, Colorado, Oregon, certain states in America. And of course, there are countries where traditional plant medicines such as ayahuasca, such as iboga, such as peyote are legal. And quite a lot of European countries are decriminalizing, so nobody gets into trouble for having using a psychedelic. And retreat centers are legal in quite a few countries in Europe. So we are fighting for compassionate access for people with cancer and people who combat veterans, first responders, people with significant trauma. The police force have significant trauma because of what they have to deal with kind of on a daily basis. So really that is me finished. I would say this is a much needed and a relatively safe treatment option. And remember, you're not having a side effect burden from these medicines because you're only going to take them up to 3 times and then have access therapy. It will start your healing process, enable the brain to reorganize, but you kind of do have to change your life, which I know is very difficult for people. But if you really want to heal from your trauma, I think then you really have to do this. Many people are microdosing. We need more research on this. I think we need more information about how selective for the 2A receptor psilocybin, for example, is. Companies are developing their own version of psilocybin. They need to be doing this work. We need more ethnically diverse work for sure. And drug-drug interactions are very important. I'm trying to change the UK drug laws. There's a lot of lovely information out there. The Drug Science podcast that I co-host, we did an interview with Joe Tafur, who actually, people, if you're interested in this, he has written the most wonderful book called Fellowship of the River. I highly recommend you read that. And he's got another one coming out, all about the intersection of Western medicine and shamanic practices, and traditional plant medicines, and how they can, and he is doing that actually, because ketamine is not a psychedelic, but it is available for people for severe depression. That's quite an interesting sort of treatment. It does also induce an altered state of consciousness. So that the book to read if you're interested to start is How to Change Your Mind, Michael Pollan. I think it's fantastic. I will stop talking now. Will I stop sharing my slides, Hamizah?
Yes, you can.
As long as I can right, let me do that. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Neill, for enlightening us on the psychedelic assisted therapy for the mental health and for the mental illness, such as the anxiety, depression, and even its work for the neurodegenerative disorder, like for the Parkinson's disease that you showed just now. And also, it's very good to know that Malaysia was ranked as the 5th happiest country in the Asian. Thank you for sharing. All right, so before we proceed to the next panelist, we will now open the floor for a short Q&A session with Professor Jo, as she will need to leave us slides earlier today. So to everyone in the audience, if you have any questions for Professor Jo, please feel free to type them in the chat box. All right, so let me check the chat box. I saw some questions in the chat box. Okay, I will read the questions from the audience to Professor Jo. The first question is from Dr. Murni. Very informative talk, Prof. Jo. A couple of questions. How do psychedelics compare to antidepressants in terms of effectiveness and risk? And secondly, can psychedelics cause permanent mental health problems? Okay, that's 2 questions from Dr.
Okay,
Murni.
I think those are, thank you so much, Myrna. I think those are really, Myrni, sorry, those are very good questions. And I do get asked that a lot. I think they compare very well to the traditional medicines, particularly for severe mental health disorders, particularly for very severe depression and for anxiety disorders. As I said, the traditional medicines don't work for severe mental illness. The remission rate for severe depression or treatment-resistant depression was 13% in the best trial that we have got. So I would say they compare very, very well. And what I have found is that many people actually don't want to take an SSRI because they induce sexual dysfunction and they induce gut disorders and what people say is that they numb them rather than enabling them to live their best lives. They just feel like they're not really feeling any emotions very well. And I think for all of us, we will experience some very difficult emotions in our lives, some very difficult times. Life is like this, but we need to work through those emotions and we need to understand I think our own emotional states better, and antidepressants don't help people to do that. So I think for mild illness they work well, but really for these severe illnesses they are not helping at all. It's a really good question. I think they can cause permanent mental health problems. When I started this, I took trouble to meet people, go to a lot of sort of forums where people were discussing their experience. And I did meet some people who I thought should never have taken these medicines. Certainly in the clinical trial, there have been no problems because people are screened very carefully, and people need to be very aware that this is a very challenging psychological experience. And certainly I met one chap who I thought should never have taken this. He went to a retreat. I don't think there are, of course, bad people making money out of people who've got a lot of money who can go to Peru or Colombia and do a retreat. I felt that he was not well looked after at all. He should not have done another dose of ayahuasca after he had such a profoundly bad experience. He said he couldn't sleep. He was having nightmares. In the trials, of course, if somebody's really struggling, they will administer a low dose of an antipsychotic, and that blocks the 2A receptor and will bring them back. So it is an altered state of consciousness. It's a very difficult experience, especially for people who've had post-traumatic stress disorder. But the people I've met who've been very well looked after have been healed. So they've had a difficult experience in the psychedelic trial or going to the Peru, but actually they have come out healed. So and sometimes it has to be very, very difficult. And you have to face your trauma, which of course the brain shuts down your trauma. It doesn't want you to experience that. So there are clearly some people who should not have this. If you've any risk of psychosis, because that's kind of an altered state of consciousness, it's a real no-no. Misuse, okay, I think with ecstasy, MDMA, people clearly are using that. I think there could be a risk of that. I think that was why the MAPS trials didn't get FDA approval. I think what we need to look at is, do people become dependent after they've had a treatment? And in the trials, as far as I know, I don't think there has been that. I would say that psychedelics are anti-addictive. Actually, they enable people to heal from their addictions. In the Global Drug Survey, we found that people, the classical features of an addictive drug, that they induce craving, that they release dopamine in the reward centers. Psychedelics do none of this. People don't crave them. It's quite a hard experience, even if you're doing it sort of for your own mental health, which people do. So people tend to use them maybe twice or three times a year. That's what the Global Drug Survey showed. I don't think there's been really many cases of people becoming addicted to something like psilocybin. And actually, you couldn't take it every day because of what the 5-HT2A receptor internalizes and will not be activated the next day. So even if you want to take it, it's not going to have any effect. But I think it's very important to understand how successful the trials have been for people with severe addictions. Bipolar disorder. Somebody asked me that yesterday, funny enough. I don't know. I'm sure there are trials for bipolar disorder. Certainly, for psychosis, this will not become a treatment. I think for people who've got other type 1 and type 2 bipolar disorder, for the type that induces where you get very, very severe depression, I can imagine this would work quite well. But actually, I haven't studied this very well. Yes, I love this genetic screening. That's a really clever idea. I don't think we do personalized medicine properly. We don't think we do it in psychiatry at all. If you become psychotic, you get an antipsychotic. Everybody gets one. You're not. I guess by the time somebody gets an antipsychotic, it's too late. I think your GP here, your general practitioner, can prescribe you an antidepressant. We don't do personalized medicine. There is epigenetic work going on with psychedelics. That's very, very cool. I think you're absolutely right. We really need to find to enable precision psychiatry. That's a great question. Yeah, I really like this about mental disorders being prevented by diet or exercise. I think you're going to come on to that, aren't you, in your subsequent talks? I think your next speakers are probably best placed to answer that. We did some exercise studies in the animals though, and improved their cognitive function. We were looking for cognition and social interaction. Yeah, well, I mean, the UK comes bottom in the mental state of the world report, and they think one of the reasons for this is our early life access to ultra processed foods and internet. Clearly, there's lots of damaging information on the internet that nobody should ever see, and we do have. I mean, we have had austerity in the UK for 14 years with the previous government, and there is a lot of poverty in the UK now, which we kind of didn't have 20 years ago. And of course, the ultra processed food is much cheaper than buying fresh, and it's easy to prepare. So if your parents have got 3 jobs, so I think the diet and exercise is absolutely key, actually. But I don't think you can prevent. Well, actually, the woman I was talking about with cancer, she is working on a ketogenic diet. She's written a lovely cookbook for it. So I think diet and exercise are very important interventions.
Thank you very much, Professor Jo. Before you leave, could you please share at least a take-home message for our audience?
Oh, sorry. Should I what?
Yeah, I mean, could you please share a take-home message for our audience? Yeah.
Okay. I think keep your eye on psychedelic medicine. I don't know. I'm sure it's probably not available in Malaysia. I don't know. Especially when, as clinicians, your healthcare professionals, you're meeting people where you cannot, the current medicines and the current approaches cannot help them. I think keep your eye on because this is a rapidly evolving field of not only psychiatry therapy, but also neurology. So I think keep your eye on this. There's some brilliant online webinars on psychedelic therapy. If you ever get a chance to hear David Nutt, he's probably the best person to explain how the science, best isn't fair. So I think keep your eye. This is emerging. The law is changing in many, many countries because the need is so great. I know you did so well in the mental state of the world report, but I would say you will have people who are very, very unwell, and this could be a very appropriate medicine for them.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Professor Neill, for making time to be with us today. We truly value your contribution and wish you all the best in your next engagement. And thank you again.
I tell you what,
Okay.
oh no, I won't do
All
that.
right.
But look, if anybody, I always find that people go away and they have some questions about this. I'm more than happy to meet anybody by Zoom if they want to talk more about this, or email me with Hamizah, you will have my email address.
Yes, I will share.
Do pass it on because people do have lots of questions. Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a very hot and sunny day actually in the UK. You'll be pleased to hear. I live by the sea, so I'll be going for a swim later today. But thank you very much for inviting me. That is so kind of you.
Yeah, we really hope that we can have a future collaboration with you.
Oh, I hope so.
Thank you. Okay, so I will share your contact with the audience later, and hopefully if any other researchers or the audience would like to ask questions and discuss further about the psychedelics, the assisted therapy, and also to discuss more about the mental health studies or anything, I will let you let's have a further collaboration with us. Okay.
And thank you for everybody for coming. It's
okay.
lovely.
Thank you, Professor Joe.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I'm pleased to welcome our second panelist, Dr. Raihan Hassan. Before we proceed, allow me to share a brief biography of our second speaker, Dr. Raihan. Dr. Raihan Hassan is a highly accomplished medical professional with a distinguished career as a family medicine specialist, and she obtained her medical degree from USM in 2002 and followed by a Master of Medicine in the Family Medicine in 2016 from the same university, and a subspecialization in addiction medicine in primary care from the Ministry of Health Malaysia in 2024. She currently serves as a family medicine specialist at Klinik Kesihatan Pengkalan Cepa in Kota Baru, Kelantan, and her extensive experience includes the leadership roles as family medicine specialist in various states, including Perak, Sabah, Pahang, and Terengganu before she moved to Kelantan. And Dr. Raihan has significant contributions to national and state-level programs related to the non-communicable diseases, maternal and child health, and addiction service. Dr. Raihan has been actively involved in research, publications, and the developments of technical guidelines, and has presented at numerous international and national conferences and workshops. Her professional contributions extend to being a clinical referral expert in primary care settings, including mental health and addiction cases. She is also a recipient of several accolades, including the Excellence Service Award from the Terengganu State Health Department in 2020 and the Urban Agriculture Award for her urban farming projects in 2023. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Raihan. So Dr. Raihan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Hamizah, for a kind and long introduction. So I'm going to also thank you to INBIOSIS team for inviting me again this time. So I'm going to share my slide. Okay, so today I'm going to be a bit lighter on presentation. It's not going to be substance or graph, but it's going to be more towards management of mental health, particularly in the primary care setting. So this is the outline of my presentation. There will be a definition of health, mental health, as well as mental illness, the prevalence of mental illness, particularly in our country, the importance of good mental health, the screening, the treatment, how to recognize early signs of mental illness, and the last but not least, the management of mental illnesses at primary care level in Malaysia. I would like to include a little bit on management of substance use in disorder in primary care setting. So what actually the definition of health? Health is actually defined as a complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. If you can see here, mental health is actually a part of definition for health. So you really need a good mental health before people tell you are healthy. So what does it mean by mental health itself? It's actually a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life. People with a good mental health will realize their abilities and they will learn well and work well, thus will contribute to their communities. These are actually the indicators for good mental health. People will have resilience to stress, have empathy, more flexible, there is more of gray area, not just black or white, has a good spirituality, optimism, self-confidence, and etc. Although most people are actually resilient, people who are exposed to risk factors or adverse circumstances, for example, like poverty, violence, disability, and inequality, is actually at higher risk of developing a mental health condition. So it's actually here the balance between protective factors and risk factors is actually contribute whether a person will develop mental illness. Protective factors here is like the spiritual, the environmental factors, family, genetic as well. Okay. So what does it mean by mental illness or mental disorders? Some people interchangeably using mental illness and mental disorders. It's actually quite similar, but mental illness is actually a broader term encompassing a wide range of conditions that affect a person's thinking, feeling, or behavior. And it actually refers to all diagnosable mental disorders, like an umbrella of mental disorders. So it is characterized by a significant changes, either in thinking, emotion, or behavior. And people with mental illness or mental disorders were always associated with distress as well as impairment in functioning, whether in social work or even interaction between family members. There are many categories of mental disorders, but I would like to make it in a smaller categories into 5 major categories: mood disorders, anxiety disorders, psychotic disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders, and other categories in which it not falls with other 4 major categories. So, for example, for mood disorders, depression, like major depressive disorders, under mood disorders. Bipolar disorders is also under mood disorders. For anxiety, there are lots of anxiety-related disorders. For example, like generalized anxiety disorders, social anxiety disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, and also stress-related disorders, the PTSD. And schizophrenia as a psychotic disorders, even though other disorders also can be presented with psychosis, but schizophrenia is one of the major psychotic disorders. Not to left out our neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD and autism spectrum disorders and other categories which also can usually be seen in our clinical setting will be eating disorder, personality disorders, trauma-related disorders, and also substance-related disorders. Among all of these categories of mental disorders and illness, there are few disorders that would be commonly seen in primary care setting, which is the anxiety disorders, those with generalized anxiety disorders or panic disorders, depression, stress-related disorders, and also substance-related disorders, in which people that are using drug may be presented to our clinical setting with the problem of addiction, misuse, overdose, or even during intoxication. Okay, how about mental illness or disorder in Malaysia? So through our NHMS or National Health and Mobility Survey data, it often shows a considerable proportion of adults experiencing mental health issues. However, it is often underdiagnosed and undertreated due to stigma and lack of awareness. So people rarely go early to the clinic because they're afraid other people will tell them they are crazy, just keep it by themselves only until their symptoms worsening, then only they go and search for help. Yeah? And definitely mental illness is really a significant public health concern. As it is stated that it is actually one of the leading causes of disability and health loss in Malaysia, accounting about almost 9% of total disability adjusted life years, as well as the high cost to Malaysian economy, up to 5 billion in the year of 2018. So this is actually what I've mentioned before, the NHMS or National Health Mobility Survey and NHMS. Actually, starting from 1986, our government conducted a survey, a general survey to our Malaysian population. However, in the year of 2011, the proper survey just started and then it's actually a 4-year cycles of survey, and the latest one will be in the 2023. There are multiple topics covered, and one of the topics will be the mental health both to adult and children. And we can see from the NHMS survey from 2015 data, almost 1/3 of Malaysians actually having mental health problems, and it was alarmingly the alarming data would be there was approximately about 1 million people, or almost 5%, in the year of 2023 suffers from deep depression. This is actually a doubling depression by the year by 4 years. And then the most worrying part would be the nearly half of those with depressions actually have thoughts of self-harm or suicide. So this is actually a comparison between the data in 2019 to the latest NHMS in 2023. We can see that the increasing trend of depression by 4 years, and then half of them is actually having suicidal thoughts, thinking about hurting themselves, being better off dead, and also the major proportion of people who are having depression are actually from the late adolescent age group, the 16 to 19 years of age. And then if you can see from the 2019 data, the highest prevalence of depression is actually found in urban states, in the area of Putrajaya and Negeri Sembilan, in which around 5% of the population there are actually having depressive symptoms. Even though in the latest data, they didn't mention about the state with the highest prevalence of depression, but I am very sure it will be quite similar. Okay, so how about adolescent or child data? The prevalence of a mental health problem among adolescents is actually increasing as well. You can see here the overall mental health problem increased from 12% to 16%. And if you can see that 1 out of 10 children in Malaysia experience mental health problem, and the highest problem with peer, complaining about having no friends, being bullied, not liked by other children, and a quarter of them has conduct problems, having problems with disobey instruction, often have tantrums. So this is actually a very alarming problem, because adolescent will later on become adult. If they continue having mental problem and being not treated, they're going to be complicated with other major mental illness later. This is just a trend showing the increasing suicidal ideation for the past few years since 2017, increased up to 13% for suicidal ideation. And also, if you can see, the suicidal attempts among adolescents is also increased up to almost 10%. A little bit on substance use in adult. This is a data from NHMS in 2019. Our prevalence of lifetime drug use in Malaysia was a little bit lower from global, but I am sure that this is underreported. And I just want to show the most popular substance that being used by adult population. The first one would be cannabis or marijuana, followed by kratom. And then followed by amphetamine type stimulants like ice, picoder, or yaba pill, then followed by opiate and inhalant, those with gum sniffing. Yeah? But the but what is most important here, they started with marijuana or cannabis. Let's go to the adolescent substance use. Yeah. So this is the latest from NHMS to 2022 for adolescent. The data shows that almost around 5% adolescent reported had ever used drug during lifetime. And the most alarming data would be 3 in 4 of ever drug users is actually initiated before the age of 14, yeah? And then the current drug users among adolescents, around 3%. The substance are not much different, but the only things here, inhalant is actually the most used among adolescents because it is cheap, easily available, and it has given the psychedelic effects faster. So from the data, we can see that there is an importance of managing mental illness early, because the prevalence is actually increasing years by years. And definitely we need early detection and treatment. And because we do not have because of the treatment, people come late to seek for treatment, we need prevention more. Because we want to try to prevent those mild mental illness to become more severe later on. So why mental health treatment matters? So why we need to treat early? Definitely, this is actually the reason why we want to treat mental illness early, to improve quality of life, because we want a better function in daily life, including work, school, and relationships. And then like what I've mentioned before, prevent further complications, enhance physical health, because when patients have chronic stress, their immune system is actually impaired. When your immune system impaired, you're actually exposing your body to other complications like infection, so on. Yeah? So remember that your mind and body are connected. Good mental health can make your body stronger and prevent physical illness. So when you are having a good physical health, definitely it will boost your productivity, good relationship as well, promoting a healthier society. So this is actually our national 5-year strategic plan that was launched in 2020. The aim for this 5-year strategic plan for mental health was to reduce the prevalence of mental health conditions. particularly depression among adolescents, as well as to improve access to quality care. And here in this National Strategic Plan, it stated the importance of primary care setting by integrating mental health services into routine healthcare. So what are the strategies that we're planning to do? First is definitely to strengthening the mental health surveillance system, the screening things, to get the data, how many patients having problems. Second is to increase the resources for mental health care, improving the availability, make treatment available at every encounter of patient, like in klinik kesihatan, you are able to treat all sort of mental illness and have a quality mental health services. Promoting mental health well-being and health by doing more and more promotions and programs, strengthening cross-sectoral collaborations with the stakeholders, with other departments, and also with hospitals as well. Enhancing preparedness during emergency, try to manage those post-distress, events so that they won't complicate to become a difficult mental illness, and also do emphasize on suicidal prevention. So this is actually what we are doing in primary care setting, is actually an integration of care, prevention, promotion, screening, as well as planning the management. So we go to the first thing, the community mental health program. It's actually just a promotion of healthy lifestyle, promote exercise, promote healthy diet, promote self-care, and also self-empowerment for patients to manage chronic medical illness by doing all the non-pharmacological management. So there was a question before, I think it stated that can exercise prevent mental health? It's actually true, because if you can see through my second slide, the preventive or the protective factors, healthy lifestyle, exercise, everything is actually one of the protective factors. By doing exercise, your happy hormones actually elevated, and it leads to a better healthcare lah. And then okay, this is actually among the many promotions and prevention programs that we've been promoting in our primary care level. Also collaboration from other department as well, from Perkeso, the buku panduan kesihatan mental that can be downloaded through online. And then this actually from our unit kesihatan, and also celebrating our Hari Kesihatan Mental Sedunia every year by 10th October, just to advocate that taking care of mental illness is very important. So this is among the community programs that we've been doing regularly, especially tackling problems among adolescent programs. This is actually among the latest promotion, the programs collaboration with Sime Darby, and then this actually among a few LDK or latihan dan kumpulan with those teenagers, and also invited one of the teenagers sharing what actually teenage want in their life. And then not forgetting other age group, giving programs to geriatric age group, warga mas, and also adult. Second is emphasize on early detection and screening. So to know or to detect people with mental illness, we have to screen. Screening can be done through questionnaires, whether to ask a high-risk group, or we can also screen general population, because some people may be presented with typical symptoms of mental illness. Some will be presented with uncommon presentation of mental illness. So when we do screening, perhaps we can catch early, give early diagnosis, and also give early treatment. So what types of presentation or the common presentation of mental illness can actually be diverse, but some common signs include significant changes in mood, behavior, thinking, and as well as physical health. People with mental illness can be presented with continuous feelings of sadness, anxiety, or even feeling hopelessness, have excessive worry about things that are not important, have a sleeping difficulty or even overslept, or extreme mood swings. Suddenly you feel very happy and suddenly you feel very sad and easily being irritable, feeling worthlessness most of the time or feeling guilty, loss of interest in activities that previously you once enjoyed, having trouble concentrating, suddenly you have memory problem. Even at worst, people may presented with suicidal thoughts or attempts to hurt yourself. If any of you or your family members have this type of symptoms for at least 2 weeks straight, the next action will be go and ask for help from professional. Yeah, okay, this is actually just a repetition, the symptoms, the common symptoms of mental health issues. Yeah, okay. So, like what I've mentioned before, some people may be presented with a different presentation, a somatic complaints or behavioral clues, like persistently having a headaches that which is cannot be described by investigation all normal, or presented with persistent fatigue, low energy, investigation also come back as normal, frequent visit to ED for presentation with chest pain, however, ECG and all investigation are all normal. And for adolescents, they usually presented with gastrointestinal issues, presented with stomach aches, indigestion. Yeah? And for behavioral clues, some people may just presented presented with frequent consultation for minor issues, and also for those who has very poor control of chronic diseases like uncontrolled diabetic, uncontrolled hypertension, when you ask further, they're actually having other problems like feeling alone, lonely, emptiness, being left by children, and so on. So this is actually among the different presentation for mental illness. So what are the screening questionnaires that are available? The easiest one would be the Woolly 2 question, very brief 2 question, and followed by other screening to look for depression and anxiety. This is actually the question, very easy question. You will be asked by by our healthcare workers regarding is there over the past 1 month have you been bothered by the following problems: feeling down or depressed or hopeless, or having little interest or pleasure in doing things. If any one of the question you'll be answered as yes, you will be proceeded to answer another questionnaire, which is GAD-7 and PHQ-9, just to look for is there any evidence for depression or anxiety. Or if you are lazy enough to go to clinic, you can always do online or self-screening using your My Sejahtera apps or My Minda. Hopefully you still have My Sejahtera in your handphone. And also you can go through Mentari website. Let's go through what does it has in the My Sejahtera. Just click on your My Sejahtera, then you can see the logo of my Minda. Just click on My Minda and will appear like this. So just click on the retake assessment, and you will be given a set of questions in which if you answer any dangerous answer, any red flags, for example, like you are suddenly tick on having suicidal ideas, My Sejahtera will straight away give talian here for you to contact. Yeah? And okay. And you can also go through Mentari Malaysia. This is an official portal for Mentari Malaysia, but Mentari Malaysia is actually being run by psychiatrists at hospital, not at primary care level. There are a different set of questions available. You can use DAS to look for stress as well, and other like PHQ, CBI, and WHODAS. So you can always click and look and do the self-assessment. Okay, let's go to a little bit on the brief on management of primary care treatment. Primary care treatment for mental illness, it always may be divided into non-pharmaco, the non-drug treatment, and also drug treatment. For non-pharmacological treatment, option in primary care setting, we have, or we can actually provide with psychoeducation, explaining what are you having at the moment. It's just a brief psychotherapy. You also have counselor in-house for counseling, and you can refer those with mild illness, mild mental illness for breathing exercise through our occupational therapies, or a refer for physio for exercise, and also if relevant can refer to community support, for example, like NGO under our clinic. And for pharmacology, we have several options. Medication for mental illnesses like antidepressant, SSRI, anti-anxiety, and antipsychotic depends on the presentation. And for those presented with symptomatically, like those with a drug, a substance problem presented with withdrawal, we can start symptomatic treatment. And also not to forget the treatment of comorbidity if present. It's always a multidisciplinary team and a collaborative care. Yeah? Okay, so next is accessibility and decentralization. Most of our clinic kesihatan nowadays have a special or expanded scope in KK. So for example, like Clinic Mesra Remaja. If you say a patient or adolescent with a mental problem, they rarely speak up during first session. So they actually need a few more sessions before they open up their problem. So adolescents will be seen in Clinic Mesra Remaja for further management. And then we have Clinic Warga Mas, and also OSCA, a one-stop center for addiction, is actually a new move from our KKM, our Ministry of Health, in terms of managing addiction at primary care level. Okay, so collaboration referral when indicated. So just a little bit on OSCA, because I'm sure that not many of you knows about OSCA. OSCA is a new move from KKM in which we are trying to offer services managing other addiction apart from managing opioid addiction at primary care setting. This is actually following UNODC International Standard for Treatment of Drug Use Disorders, in which the mode of service organization is to treat at under one roof, one-stop shop approach. Okay. So if you look at addiction treatment services in the Ministry of Health, it will be further divided into primary care and tertiary center. Previously, we have methadone clinic, but methadone clinic is actually for treating opioids. But nowadays, we see more and more patients come with other types of substance abuse or addiction. So that's why we upgrading our methadone clinic into another services, which is one-stop center for addiction. So what services provided in OSCA, managing every substance and together with behavior addiction, if any. Okay. And at the moment, by the year 2024, Malaysia has 23 registered OSCA, and I am very sure by this year, the numbers of OSCA is keep on increasing. Okay, so just a little show some pictures. It's actually one of the pioneer OSCA project in KK Masjid Tanah Melaka, and this is actually another OSCA, also one of the pioneer project in Batu Sembilan Ceras, and also showing my previous clinic in KK Kuala Besut. So if you look at the banner there, it's actually very useful. Some of my patients actually asking for help after seeing this banner. Yeah. Okay, and then now I'm reside here in KK Planchepa. We also have OSCA, in which we are trying to improve the services by this year. Okay, so how to get help in clinic kesihatan for drug misuse problem? You can always walk in any clinic kesihatan, even without OSCA services. And if the clinic has OSCA service, patient will be directed to see OSCA team on the same day. And okay, so you can always walk in or asking for appointment, and people or patient with addiction problems or even misuse problem can be seen in OSCA. If it is manageable, no need to refer, but in severe cases, polysubstance difficult, patient may be referred to addiction clinic or psychiatric if indicated. So most of the mild cases can be settled down at Oscar level. Okay, so last but not least is the post-crisis or disaster mental health management. By using psychological first aid or PFA. It's actually an evidence-based modular approach managing people of immediate aftermath of disaster. So it's actually a supportive intervention used in response to disasters, crises, or violence. Treatment given is just like talk therapy, playing, and so on. So the aim is actually to promote safety, to reduce distress, facilitate access to support, encourage coping, also promote resilience so that the mental state of people involved with the disasters is well cared. Yeah? Okay, I think that's the last slide for my presentation. As a summary, mental illness is common, treatable, and increasing in Malaysia, especially among adolescents. And if you're talking about treatment, it's always holistic combination of lifestyle changes, psychological therapy, as well as medication. Okay, with that, I thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Raihan, for your informative and thoughtful presentation, and also for your explanation on the general overview of mental illness in Malaysia, as well as the primary care roles in mental health issues and treatments given to the mental illness patients, mental illness. Yeah, so there are very informative talk from you. So, all right. So since mental illness in Malaysia is common and it's keep rising and still stigmatized, but with the growing awareness and the national efforts, so our country is making the progress in care, I hope, and we have all right. So let's put more flames on this issue. Maybe for those for the audience who would like to ask any questions to Dr. Raihan, you may type in the chat box. But I will keep your questions after the talk by the third panelist. Okay. So now I would like to invite our third panelist, Professor Dr. Firdaus. But before we begin, let me take a moment to introduce Professor Firdaus by sharing a brief overview of her biography. So Professor Dr. Firdaus Mukhtar is a professor and consultant clinical psychologist at Hospital Sultan Aziz Shah Department of Psychiatry, Universiti Putra, Malaysia. And she is the past president of Asian Cognitive Behavior Therapy Association and currently a task force member of training and accreditation of World Confederation CBT, who is involved directly in developing WC CBT training guidelines. And recently in May 2024, she won the Pavlov's Award and the annual CBT Award from Russian CBT Association. And in 2023, she was appointed as the Global CBT Ambassador to recognize her contribution in CBT development. She has extensive experience as conference international advisor for both 10th World Congress CBT in Seoul and 8th Asian CBT Congress in New Delhi. And in 2012, Dr. Firdaus was the recipient of the L'Oreal Malaysia Young Woman Scientist for her vast contribution in psychological research, and she has 20 years of experience in providing CBT and DBT training to medical, allied health, and mental health professionals around Southeast Asia. Prof. Firdaus was a CBT consultant for the World Health Organization in Malaysia to develop a CBT manual to manage chronic medical illness at primary care level and gave intensive CBT training to family medicine specialists. So with nearly 100 scientific articles and more than 5 CBT books, she is renowned subject matter expert in the area of depression, anxiety, obesity, and vaginismus in the region. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Firdaus. So the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamizah, Dr. Hamizah Shahirah, our moderator today, and Dr. Raihan Hassan, our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Please allow me to share my slide for a while. I'm honored today being introduced by my own Hassan. Congratulations for moderating the session today. So in these 30 minutes, what we'd like to cover is on the definitions of psychology, what is actually the psychologists do in assessing mental health. And then we will discuss on, we have enough, I believe, in terms of medical intervention in treating mental health. So I would like to focus on psychological intervention, or in other name is psychotherapy, in particular CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, as evidence-based in treating mental health. And we will hoping that we have the opportunity to learn a little bit on the cognitive and behavioral skills before the take-home message. So for those who are new, what is psychology? Psychology is a scientific study of mind and behavior. So there's a word psychology derived from the Greek word psyche for spirit or soul. So the logi or derived from logia, logos, which means study or research. Okay, so the psychologist is a profession. So you need to be trained in order to be called psychologist. So just by having the interest or you are good in talking doesn't mean that you are psychologist. So lots of things been covered under psychology. So one of it is mental health. So I believe that you have overview, you have better idea or better picture now what is a mental health and what kind of a treatment that available in Malaysia in particular in treating mental health. So in psychology, there are 15 divisions to differentiate the role of psychologists. So in mental health, clinical psychology or clinical psychologist, the one who actually focus on the assessment and treatment of mental health disorder and emotional disturbance. So under this task, so in order to see patients, so what kind of treatment that is suitable that a person could actually see is we will use the framework of biopsychosocial, okay, but I will insert biopsychosocial spiritual in order to have a better understanding of our patient. So the first one is a biological part. This is where we want to understand what is the appetite level, sleep issues, any genetic predispositions, if they have the family history of a psychiatric illness, to understand the biological factor. The second one is the psychological factor. So this is what we want to understand, the way they think, their thinking style, the way they manage their emotion, the way they regulate their behavior, okay, how they understand or handle stress. Okay, so this is from the psychological factors. The third one is the social factors. So this is where we want to understand the relationship issues, their family dynamic, their friendships, how they can make friends, how they actually involve in terms of their organization, career, and whatnot. So the bigger part that I would like to expand to understand one particular patient who seek for mental health treatment. So in terms of the spiritual part, okay, so the spiritual part is important. So this is a larger component that influence their biological, psychological, and social factors, because this is actually the one that create their identity. So what is the meaning of their life? What is the purpose of their life? And how they actually handle their emotion, their thoughts in dealing with stress in life. So this is the part that we're going to do at a history taking, the first session when we see patient. So from there, from the information, so only we do formulation. So the case formulation is all depends the school of thought that a psychologist belongs to. So if you look at the trend of psychological intervention or psychotherapy in the world, the first psychotherapy that exists in the world is called psychodynamic. Okay, so it derived from the psychoanalysis. It's looking back for the cause or the root cause of the problem. Okay, so that is where a person who have a conflict unresolved during the childhood. So this is will giving some insight of how they can actually handle the problems better. And then it goes to the first wave of psychotherapy that is called behavior therapy. Yeah? So this is where the part that whenever that a person having mental health issues, so usually it will disrupt their behavior or their physical activities. So behavior therapists will look at the overt behavior, the behavior that they can actually see, that they can actually learn or unlearn and relearn. Okay, so then the second wave it goes to the cognitive therapy. So this is where the pioneer of Aaron Beck, who focusing on the thinking process, where he proposed the cognitive theory. So that is where later they combine the behavior therapy and the cognitive therapy to become CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. Okay, so CBT is not just focusing on the thinking process, but it's also focusing on the behavior change. And then later we have third wave therapy, the therapy that comes after CBT, or we call it contextual therapy. So they focus on distress feeling. Yeah, so they focus on emotion focus, like a mindfulness, acceptance commitment therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, and whatnot. Okay, so it is not all one particular psychologist actually do all these four. It all depends their training, where they've got their specific skills in order to help their patient. So basically, that's why a person could actually fatigue, tired, depressed, anxious, because lots of thoughts that actually come up in our brain as much as 70,000 thoughts per day, in which we need to understand what is psychological intervention do to help a person to rewire their thoughts, their emotion, and improve their behavior. So as I mentioned earlier, so the latest or evidence-based psychotherapy is called cognitive behavior therapy. So this is Pim Kuiper's review papers that I would like, if you're interested to understand what is a CBT and how CBT has helped a lot of patients in having mental health issues. So this is one of the first paper that you can actually start to understand, start to know how CBT is evidence-based in treating mental health. Yeah, so in this review papers, it conclude that from 409 trials with more than 52,000 patients who actually been compared with the control condition. It can be with other psychotherapy or with pharmacotherapies or combined treatment. It shows that cognitive behavior therapy is leading evidence-based psychotherapy at the moment in the world, okay, including in Malaysia. So as I said, cognitive behavior therapy is not just one particular therapy. It's a big umbrella here. Underneath that is the new therapy because the therapy itself is evolved. Yeah, so that is where a person nowadays would actually understand exposure therapy, mindfulness based therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, compassion focused therapy, and cognitive processing therapy. Okay, so this is all therapy that come from that using almost similar theoretical framework as cognitive model. Okay, so what is in the context of Malaysia? So in Malaysia, our clinical practice guideline, the guidelines that most the medical doctors or psychiatrists use in managing patients with major depressive disorder. So under psychotherapy, so it is mentioned that cognitive behavior therapy, okay, it is recommended in order to treat our patient. So it's not just for psychiatric illness, it is also for physical illness or medical illness that is also include obesity. Okay, so this is the latest CPG guidelines for management of obesity, where the CBT is also mentioned, important for the medical doctors to refer to or to manage patient holistically, okay, by using psychological approach in managing obesity, that is using cognitive behavior therapy beside the motivational interviewing. Okay, so this is where I would like to also mention my very first study on using group cognitive behavior therapy in treating patients with depression. So this is my first paper in Malaysia, where I conduct the CBT for patients with depression. In this, the first figure here, it shows that after fourth session, okay, patients who reduce their automatic thoughts, their negative thoughts, and learning the breathing exercise are reducing a lot faster, okay, compared to patients with antidepressant. Okay, so and then the reduction is sustained until the week 16, until to the final weeks, week 28. Okay, so after the follow-up of 3 months and 6 months, patients are also improving, okay, compared to just taking antidepressant. Same goes the second figure down here. When we try to improve their assumptions in life, yeah, when you have lower assumption, you lower down your expectation in life, you're increasing the gratitude practice in your life. You are being kind to not just to others, but also being kind to yourself. Okay, so the reductions of score of depression evidence here in this research. So this study has been replicated by my PhD student. During my when I introduced my CBT project, I used among Malay's population only, and then this study has been replicated by my PhD student, okay, to use CBT to other ethnicity as well. That includes Chinese and Indian in this study, and we are also having the same results, in which after CBT, patient reduced the scores in depression symptoms after they learn the CBT to reduce the negative thoughts and improving their behavioral dysfunction. So this is just an example, and I have several more randomized control trial studies that have done into for patients with anxiety, for patients with depression, anxiety among adolescents, for patients with tinnitus, eczema, and also obesity. Yeah, so this is the books that the first two books here, if you can see, these are two books that you can find in Shopee: CBT for anxiety and CBT in depression in our local language. And these are three books that I involve at national level. The first one is the program Tiara Moni. This is a CBT book for postnatal depression, and this is the CBT book that we use for primary care, especially for family medicine specialists, that covers CBT in managing chronic medical illness. And the latest one is the management of behavioral addiction. So we just cover internet, gaming, and sexual addiction. So this is the part that we want to understand, that how strong the evidence of CBT in the Malaysia context for people to try to seek help in terms of non-pharmaco intervention. So I also involved in revising the definitions of CBT in the world. So CBT has been introduced for the past 40 years, and in 2023, together with World Confederation CBT, I involved in revising the definitions of CBT. So we want to highlight that the role and response to cognition, behavior, sensations, emotion, and life event, and their interrelationship, okay, that improving the development and maintenance of psychological well-being. So this is new things that I hope that people will understand what is the role of CBT. So in order to understand what is actually CBT do to our brain, I would like to bring everyone to this video. Let's watch to understand what happened in the brain after a person learn CBT.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
Okay, so I hope that gives some idea how CBT helps. Yeah. So who can actually benefit from CBT? Not all patients would benefit from CBT. So we're very careful in selecting which patient that can be part of CBT treatment. So patients with depression, anxiety, have low self-esteem, having chronic pain, maybe in the format of marital, couple, sexual issues, yeah, those having addiction, eating disorders, or patients who are having medical conditions, yeah, so that in order to improve their healthy lifestyle and behavior change, so they are all suitable for CBT. So I will explain the contraindication towards the end. So how CBT actually helps. So if I can ask, what is the most important in this life? A lot of time when I ask this question, people will answer money, people will answer family, yeah, or even health. Yeah. So the one that we want to highlight to patient is what is the most important in this life is belief. Okay, so in order to be healthy, there are three things that we want to believe. Okay, so what are those three things? The first one is to believe in God. So when believe in God, when you believe in higher being, when you know that there will be a superior who will control your life, okay, so you are improving your prefrontal cortex. Yeah. So the second one is to believe in yourself. When you believe in yourself, you accept you acknowledge your strength. Okay, you accept your weaknesses. You know how to utilize your strength and weaknesses at the appropriate time. So that is actually you strengthen your limbic system. Okay, and the last one is when you believe in treatment. Okay, so when you believe in treatment, you are compliant to the medication, you are compliant to the skills that you learn in CBT. So that is where you tame your amygdala attack. Yeah, so this is something that we want to highlight for patients who are attending CBT, that the most important is to improve or to aware what is it that they believe in this life. Okay, so what the common understanding, okay, from lots of people is whenever there's something happen, or we call it activating event, it creates emotion. So when something happens, so say someone failed exam, okay, so someone could actually feel sad, okay, depressed, anxious, or angry, okay. But the one that we want to highlight is whenever there is something happen, it is not directly goes to your emotion, but it's all based on what is actually your belief on that particular situation. Okay, so this is something that if patients agree, so it is most likely that patient will improve by learning CBT. So let me socialize a bit more on how CBT works. Just look at here the event or the situation where the boss give instruction that you must go to the psychopharmacological webinar today. Okay, so assuming that you are coming from different field, okay, so you see there's a thought, emotion, behavior tab on top here. So there are different emotion: anxious, depressed, angry, and relaxed. Okay, so the different emotion can actually come from different kind of thoughts. Okay, so for those who are anxious, maybe thinking of what new course, what if I can't understand, what if people know that I'm stupid? Die lah. Okay, so typical Malaysia, die lah. Okay, and then that is where you started to restless, call here and there. Yeah, so this is for patients who are having anxiety. And then second one is depressed. Okay, for people who have depression, maybe they have the thought loss, oh my God, there's a lot I haven't done. Who want to cover when I'm not around? Why me? Why now? Okay, so that person could actually started to cry or keep quiet or eat a lot or even don't want to eat at all. Okay, so the one who angry, okay, maybe start thinking, questioning, arguing. Why does he think that I'm crazy? How come he can just simply strike me like that? Okay, all right, he shouldn't use his power. What the hell? Yeah, so that is where people start shouting, throw things, yeah, because very angry. And what happened for those who are relaxed, okay, they have the relief. So maybe they have different thoughts like, okay, cool, yeah, so I can rest from work for a while. Maybe there is something that I can learn to improve myself, okay, and I'm sure my boss knows what's the best for me. Okay, so that person would feel relief, relax, take one step at a time, and process effectively and focus at present. Okay, so this is what we want to highlight. Okay, in the beginning of CBT, patient will be familiarized with the cognitive model. The way you think will affect the way you feel, okay, will affect your symptoms or your body reaction, and will affect the behavior. Okay, so if someone is sad, someone is stop doing the things that they enjoy in terms of behavior, or someone experience tense, palpitation, or fatigue, okay, could actually come from the way they think about something. Okay, most likely it's extreme negative or extreme positives, like nobody likes me, I always mess things up. Yeah, so that leads to certain mental disorder. So let's have a look at the depression, anxiety. I believe that this is a common one. Like for those who are depressed, look at the left side first. Okay, someone is depressed, exhausted, unable to sleep and eat, and started no self-care activities and just keep self in a room. So what is the thought that related? Maybe that person when thinking, I'm a bad mother, I never can do anything right to my family. So that's why that person feel depressed and have no motivation to do anything. Okay, let's have a look to the right side, the anxiety. Patient who are anxious, having palpitation, short of breath, and keep checking to the doctor. But when the doctor said, like Dr. Raihan said just now, the ECG is normal, or the medical investigation is normal, the blood profile is normal. So maybe we need to understand what is the thoughts that related. Oh, it is, what is wrong with me? People keep questioning himself. What if I got heart attack? Okay, assuming the worst thing could happen. So that could actually related or affected their feelings and symptoms. Okay, so this is how we explain to patients who have depression and anxiety. So what are the skills, how we help patients? As we understand, cognitive is a cognitive skills that we teach. Okay, so to understand what is the negative thoughts and how's that related to the emotion, what is the type of cognitive distortion. So there are about 10 to 15 types of cognitive distortion that we can teach patient, and how to restructure it. Okay, so when the loss of negative thoughts in mind and that affected their depression or anxiety, so that we will give them the skill of cognitive restructuring to improve their emotion better. Okay, and then certain patient could not maybe struggle to actually to change their negative thoughts to rational thoughts. Okay, so that is where we will help patients to give behavior skills, because based on what you do repeatedly in life, okay, whether it's good or bad, it will have some neuronal connection in your brain. So that is whatever that we do in life, whether we do or we don't do, so there will be some neurotransmitters that actually play a role that hijacking the amygdala. So if patients have good healthy thoughts that affect their healthy emotions, so they will improve or affected their good coping skill or good behavior. Okay, so that is where patients will started or talking to friend, play sport, okay, reading book, okay, enjoy the scenery and whatnot. But for those who have negative thoughts, they will affect their negative emotion. So that is where it leads to unhealthy behavior. Yeah, they started to have reckless behavior, they take drugs, they have emotional eating, blaming others, avoid the problems and whatnot. Okay, so this is the part that we want to understand. By improving your thoughts, it will improve your emotion and will improve your coping skills or behavior. So one of the skills that we will teach in CBT is called behavioral activation. So these activities is where to increase the pleasurable and mastery activities that promote the healthy hormones like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. Okay, so under behavior skills, so there's a lot that we actually do. So that's why it called CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. So therapy means there are several sessions that patients have to attend to in order to do or learn this exercise. Yeah, so that's include breathing exercise, progressive muscle relaxation, grounding skills, yeah, learning how to solve problem and do some kind of mindfulness activities in behavior skills. So what is it that the CBT cannot do? There are some type of patients that is not suitable or challenging for CBT to actually to improve for this kind of populations, especially for those who have severe cognitive or intellectual impairment, like maybe severe ASD, autism spectrum disorder, have active psychosis, lack of insight or motivation. Okay, they expect that CBT do like medication, yeah, they take medication and everything's okay, all right, or the therapists actually do the work, okay, so seeing the psychologist and everything will be okay, so that is maybe not suitable for CBT, okay, or those who have crisis situation like acute suicidality, severe personality disorders, having severe cultural or linguistic barriers, be in the therapist or the patient side, or having neurological condition. So this is my last message or slide where the in order to understand our patient who struggle with mental illness, it is not just how they suffer, it's not just the symptoms, but also we need to understand why they suffer. Okay, so this is where the psychological therapists repair the root where the medication manage the symptoms. So most important that we want to understand that not everyone would actually accept the same effectiveness of a CBT, because no one size fits all mind. Also, therefore, there's no one size fits all solution. Okay, so what we can actually understand, CBT helps to discover what works for individual, unique thoughts, values, and pace. And then most important in handling a mental health issues, we need a holistic healing that includes insight, connection, self-awareness, and compassion. With that, thank you very much. And back to you, Dr. Hamizah.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Firdaus, for sharing your knowledge on this topic of the cognitive behavior therapy in the mental illness patients and how to empower the brain for our mental health. And like you are sharing with us that the CBT is one of the integrated approach from the psychological intervention approach, from the 4 psychological intervention approach, such as the psychodynamic therapy, behavior therapy, cognitive therapy, emotion focused therapy. Okay, so we will now begin the Q&A session. So to our audience, please feel free to type your question in the chat box, and I will read your questions aloud to the panelists for their responses. All right, so we have some questions from the chat box. The first question is from Dr. Yuzina. Besides behavior assessments, are there any clinical tests such as blood tests, such as the serotonin, dopamine level, and available to confirm the depression? Okay, and can we fake in behavior assessment? I guess this question goes to Dr. Raihan.
Thank you, Dr. Joanna, for the question. I might say that for diagnosis of depression, the most important thing is the clinical presentation. Even though there are any clinical tests available, I might say that it is not economically good lah, because it may need few weeks before the result is ready. By that time, if waiting for the blood result, the condition of patient might be worsening. So can we fake in behavior assessment? I might say that usually patient rarely faking their behavior assessment if they really have the problems.
All right, thank you, Dr. Raihan. I will go to the next question. May I know the best ways to tackle PTSD due to trauma being bullied as a kid? I think this question also go to Dr. Raihan.
So if the reason for having PTSD is actually due to trauma being bullied, another problem might be patient has unrecognized trauma, in which the best management would be a combination of medical treatment plus psychotherapy. In this case, CBT might work in patient, and patient if the condition is severe, he or she might be started with some antidepressant drug just to boost the so-called chemicals in the brain. I think Prof. Firdaus, can you comment on this?
I agree with Dr. Raihan. Yes, for PTSD, not all PTSD cases actually would be helpful with CBT. So psychodynamic also could actually be offered if in the case that patient has low insight and have difficulty to actually to focus at present. And if it is CBT is the option, so that we have TF-CBT. TF-CBT is trauma-focused CBT, the therapy that focusing on the trauma. Okay, so that is where there are a series of sessions and someone need to be trained in order to do TF-CBT. So if it is related to the family issues, some kind of family therapies also can be integrated in order to understand or to offer holistic management in dealing with the PTSD. Yeah. Maybe I can answer a little bit on the behavior assessment, that can we fake in behavior assessment. I have different opinions. So yes, in terms of behavior assessment, so there are people who actually have some purpose. They have certain intention on making it to convince the physician or the doctor for their own purpose. Okay, so some need medical leave, some need some recommendation in order for them to actually to get what they want. So that is something that they can actually not so honest to answer that. But one thing that we can actually do is to get the verification either from family members or their support system, and also the repetitions of the assessment and also their behavioral observation. So that is where whatever that they answer in the assessment, we will see whether it is tally to the behavioral observation, what we observe at clinic and what the family members also reported.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Raihan and Prof. Firdaus. Okay, next question from Sheikh Abu Thakir. I believe that doing good deeds can help reduce depression. Could you please share any data or studies that support treating depression through practices like solah, sedekah, and other positive actions? Can Prof. Firdaus share your opinion about these questions?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Syed, for this question. Very important and very good question. This is what I did for the group CBT for patients with depression just now. So during the behavioral activation, so this is where we will ask patient to do 6 component of activities. Okay, the first one is we call this abbreviation SERENE. SERENE as SERENE. S is social. So when they actually social means they see people. people who can they feel appreciated, people who they respect. Okay, so as a social, E is entertainment. When they do lots of entertainment, we can see the reductions of a depression score. R is recreational. Recreational means they do activities related to nature. Next, E is educational. Okay, when they improve their skills and knowledge, so that is where they will improve their depression. And the last one is existential activities. Yeah, so existential activities has two things. One is related to their religion. So the more closer you to God, okay, so regardless of the religion, and the more you give some benefits to people who are unfortunate, means people who are less fortunate compared to you. Okay, maybe people who are orphanage, old folks, people who are old, elderly, people who are gelandangan, yeah. So those people who are living on street, all that. So when you do charity, okay, so that is where all the evidence in behavioral activities in CBT that proven improving their depression scores. Yes, so it is all evidence. And if you want to, if you're interested in particular in terms of how this solar prayer, sadaqah do to our immune system. I'll be publishing one of my work, how CBT helps to improve the immunological parameters. So it will be come out in early next year. So hopefully that you will continue see the publication in the future from myself. Or we do also have some evidence from one scientist in UTM, Johor. She do have the lots of studies to see the effectiveness of solar or prayer, okay, in improving depression and anxiety. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Another question from Dr. Joanna. Obviously, the person needs to voluntarily go to therapy. But what if they refuse? How can we, as a partner or family member or friend, can help? So I think maybe Dr. Raihan can give some sharing from your perspective in family medicine.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joanna, for the question. First, as a family members, as a partner or friend, the most important thing is to assess your friends or your family members. Is there any red flags as a presentation? Is there any acute psychosis? Is there any active like suicidal attempts? If there are any present of those red flags, patient need to be taken to the nearest ED lah for further management. And if you need help from police, you may ask them to escort lah. For example, patient with psychosis, you're afraid to bring patient to hospital, you may ask help from police to bring. It's not under it's not that severe, but having symptoms of psychosis.
All right. So next question from Dr. Murni. What is your thoughts on people that would like to run away from the law after doing crime and claim they have mental illness? I think both panelists can give response to this. Maybe Prof. Firdaus first.
Okay, thank you. That's what we got a lot, yeah, from news. People thought, okay, at the end of the day, when somebody create crime, so if there is mental they will claim as a mental illness and they will pass. Okay, so it is not as easy as that. Okay, there is careful psychiatric evaluation. Okay, will be done. Will be carried out by the team of the psychiatrists. A lot of assessment. That will be done in order to confirm that someone either they actually do crime in conscious or unconscious, okay, whether that is related to a mental illness or not. So it's not simply as how a lot of society try to understand, but whenever there is evidence of mental illness, it is confirmed decision. Yeah, if it is not confirmed decision after a careful psychiatric evaluation by the psychiatrist. So I would say there was a study actually. I can't remember where. There's one person who there's a famous person who actually tried to be or act like a mental illness person, and then he actually tried to be in the mental illness setting in a hospital, but only up to 3 months. Yeah, so somebody can fake they are having the mental disorder up to 3 months, and after that he is no longer able to act as a person who are purely having mental issues. So that is something that we will understand, that you can try to fake the system, but eventually it will be found out. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Raihan, have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I agree with Prof. It's not easy as say that mental illness will be free from judgment, no, because there will be lots of assessment, and then it's a collaboration. The decision is not just simply, yeah, you have mental illness, you'll be free, no.
All right. So another question from Shafira Husna. I have question about high functioning depression. Since high functioning depression doesn't always meet the full criteria for major depressive disorder, how can healthcare providers approach diagnosis and treatments without underestimating its severity? Maybe Dr. Raihan can go first.
Especially for diagnosis, you don't have to need many, you don't have to have many symptoms. It's just a duration of 2 weeks, presence of feeling useless, unworthiness, and plus 1 or 2 symptoms is actually good enough for a diagnosis. Then it comes to severity, whether it is mild, moderate, or severe. So the problem with high functioning depression would be the insight of the patient, whether she or he have insight that he or she having depression. So instead of going to a clinic, this is actually a group of a patient who suitable to do such screening.
All right. Thank you. Another question from Zainul Azri. Is there a way to determine if an adult has autism, as there were no clinical tests being done as a child? Can CBT help people with autistic behavior? This may be a question for Professor Firdaus.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zainul. There is available test for adult with autism nowadays. We call ACE, ACE, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so it is available nowadays. Okay, so we can always diagnose an adult with autism spectrum disorder. Can CBT help? Yes, especially for adult. We do also can offer CBT, especially when they understand better compared to the child. I would say for the child, behavior modification, behavior therapy is mostly used, and along with the parenting management training for child with ASD. But for adult, usually the high function or ASD level 1, they do seek help, and they do understand, they do have a better cognitive function. So that is where they can actually learn CBT in order to improve their emotion regulation, and also some social skills that can also getting from the behavioral skills in. Yeah.
Can I add something? It's actually the reason why patient not been diagnosed during childhood is because there was not enough awareness before. So people has difficulty in diagnosing. People are not going to look for reason why. And then if you want to diagnose, you can always go back to the childhood history. Is there any presence of symptoms that suggesting for autism? I'm sure that many of us are actually autistic. Perhaps just a mild autistic and not so severe, that high functioning, like previously we diagnosed as Asperger's syndrome. The only problem would be the communications or the way they being alone, suggestive that they might be having actually autistic features.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Raihan. To have adult with ASD, it's not sudden symptoms, yeah? Okay, so it must have a history in childhood that related to ASD.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Firdaus and Dr. Raihan. All right, so since there's no more question from the audience, I think any final say from Prof. Firdaus and Dr. Raihan to our audience? Final
I
say.
think there are lots of questions. Thank you for being very interactive session. And I hope that a little bit of information given from me is helpful in terms of managing mental illnesses. Thank you.
All right, for
And
my
Professor Firdaus.
All right, thank you. Your thought shape your action form your habits, and your habits build your personality. So our brain learns with repetition. So what you practice, you strengthen it. Yeah. So you have 3C, I would say 3C. Okay. So you must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much to our distinguished speakers, and also to all the participants who have joined this forum today. So now we have come to the end of our forum. So I would like to thank everyone, and I would like to thank the honorable speakers for their willingness to share with us their knowledge and experience onto this topic, which is the mental health from psychological roots to natural and medical interventions, that I am sure has opened up our view and given us some ideas onto this topic. So I will also, before we say goodbye, let us immortalize the session by switching on your video. And so for this technical team, kindly assist me with the photo session. For all participants, before we end our webinar, kindly switch on your camera for photography session. All right. Okay, ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, one more photo. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, thank you all. Okay, so we have posted the attendance link at the chat box. So kindly be informed that this link will be available for 30 minutes only. And after that, the link will be closed. Before I end this session, I would like to invite the speakers, Professor Dr. Firdaus and Dr. Raihan, to join the breakout session with us, and also for the research fellows that would like to join the breakout session, kindly PM the host for this purpose, and kindly wait for the breakout sessions invitations by the host. All right, so please stay safe and take a good care of yourself, and have a good day, everyone. Thank you.